But Atlantis itself was more than just a ring city. That ring city that was made popular by Plato and so many other people have been talking about was only one capital.
The major city is the one that is kind of the one that they say disappeared. What do you mean by ring city when you say that, by the way?
It was a city made of giant rings. In other words, they had these islands that were shaped like rings.
A small drop in yield, only minor
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Flyshikis TV. We are back again with the one and only Billy Carson. I am your boy, Flood, the Alkaline Investor. Here we have Billy Carson. I'm sure that most people are going to know who he is, but I'm going to allow him to introduce himself as well.
Hey, first of all, thanks for having me back on. The first time we were on, it was great, and the video did phenomenal. So I'm glad to be back.
Definitely.
Yeah. And so my name is Billy Carson. I'm a two-time now best-selling author. My first book, Compendium of the Emerald Tablets, hit the bestsellers list very early and stayed on there for quite some time. And my second book, Woke Doesn't Mean Broke, also became a bestseller. And I am a TV host of many TV shows on Discovery, Science Channel, History Channel, Travel Channel, Gaia, and of course now my own TV network, Forbidden Knowledge TV. I write and direct content for TV, as well as documentaries. And I have new documentaries coming out, actually 2 this year, which I'm pretty excited about. And I'm also a music artist. So my songs have been featured in a lot of TV commercials, documentary TV shows and networks, as well as department stores. And now in 2018, I actually had an album that I produced that hit Billboard for 8 weeks in 4 categories. And I have a whole new series of meditation tracks coming out. So I do a little bit of everything,
Yes, very well versed, very well versed. That's why we enjoy having you here too, because I feel like we can kind of talk to you about anything, to be honest. So your opinion is very valued. So without further ado, man, we're going to dive right on in. We actually outsourced some questions and had some people kind of give us some questions that they might want answered. Mm-hmm. So, some of them seem a little off the wall. We just kind of pick ones that, something that maybe, we can kind of get the majority of the people that ask the same question, kind of answer all those questions for them.
Okay.
So the first question that came up, and it came up pretty often, was, is the Earth flat?
Okay. That's a good question. A lot of people seem to have been caught up in this new concept of a flat planet. Now, for me, I always have to go, and anybody who studies my work knows I go off of real facts, information that I can dig up, research, or that I've studied myself personally. And based on just physics, general relativity in physics, we know that spheres pretty much dominate the universe. If I gave you a stick, and I had a stick in my hand that was 3 feet long, and I told you to go down the block 3 miles, and I called you on the cell phone, and we both put the stick in the ground at the same exact time, perpendicular to the earth. Mm-hmm. And then we took a picture of the shadows. You took a picture and I took a picture of the shadow at the same exact time. And then we took those angles of the shadows and we analyzed those angles. Then I can easily calculate the entire circumference of the entire planet from 2 shadows and 2 sticks. It's very, very easy. For every 6 feet of height you have about 3 miles of arc sight. This is why when you're standing at the edge of the ocean, you can't see past the horizon. If you go into a building and the higher up you go, the more further out you can see. Now, if you go to the top of the Empire State Building and get this most powerful telescope we have, you can't see London. You can't see the fireworks going off on New Year's Eve in London. The reason why is because of the arc of the Earth. The Earth is, in my personal opinion, is not flat. And for whatever reason, that tends to piss off a lot of people that believe the Earth is flat. And so it's pretty strange that people can get that angry and that belligerent sometimes for their belief system. But I think that everyone's entitled to their own belief system. I base my beliefs off of physics. I base my beliefs off of my knowledge of aerospace and astronomy. And so that's what I base everything off of.
Okay, and so how do you feel about the firmament as well? Have you ever heard of that before? Like the dome supposedly covering?
Yeah, that's actually a misnomer. if you look into the ancient Egyptian temples, you have Nut, and Nut bends over backwards, creating this swath of stars in the sky. That is the Milky Way galaxy. And Nut is demonstrating the Milky Way, this is why her body is covered in stars all the way across. There is no culture, and I would actually put up $100,000 cash for anyone that can bring me evidence of this. I've gone through 1,000 texts, cylinder scrolls, scriptures. There's a couple of fabricated Photoshop documents showing ancient people saying that we lived in a dome. Those are all fakes. There is no text that exists on this planet that says that there was ever a dome. The waters from waters and the firmament text come from the Enuma Elish and the 7 tablets of creation. And somebody took that out of context to form it into their own ideology about a dome over the planet. It's really talking about a celestial dance that happened millions of years ago when another planet named Tiamat that was orbiting our sun, at that time, it was the third planet. You had Mercury, Venus, and you had Tiamat. Earth didn't even exist yet. Through this particular epic, and also it's an Atrahasis epic as well. These are all 8,000-year-old texts. There was a collision of a moon with Tiamat, which caused Tiamat to basically break up into huge chunks. And then one of those chunks swept away and actually recoalesced and became the Earth. That's how Earth got here. Tiamat itself had a lot of water. It was a water-bearing planet with a lot of land mass and life on it. It was even said that the glow of it from the sun's rays hitting it, shimmering off the water, would make it rival even the own sun's glory, how beautiful this planet was. That planet is now the asteroid belt. So now you have Mercury, Venus, Earth, and then you have Mars, and then you have the asteroid belt. Mars, the reason why Mars was not the 4th planet and Tiamat was the 4th planet is because Mars was a habitable moon. Mars used to orbit Tiamat. And we know this now by just doing a geological rewind. 2 facts. We can see that one side of Mars is completely charred, the most charred planet in our solar system. Why? Because the side of Tiamat that exploded, that landmass that exploded into space, hit Mars and actually destroyed the atmosphere, caused it to have a pole shift, which is why the equator on Mars is in this angle. And then it slung it into this weird, crazy orbit around our sun, which is very elliptical in nature and very strange. It shouldn't even be that way, but it's not like that because it got slung out. That's how Mars became a planet when it used to actually be a moon. All of this is in the Enuma Elish and the 7 steps of creation. It even says, then the waters separated from the waters and the firmament from the firmament. It was all talking about the water from Tiamat pouring out and separating into space, and a lot of it remaining on a huge chunk that recoalesced as Earth, which is where we got the majority of our water and life. This is why Earth is so incredible. It was part of another planet that was fully alive for billions of years. And what's interesting is Earth and the moon didn't happen because of a collision. Our moon was also a moon of Tiamat. Gravitationally, we tugged it along with us in tow into its place. Originally, the moon was so close to the Earth that when you looked up from the Earth itself, it took up the entire sky. And every year, the moon drops back about 4 centimeters. So over millions of years, the moon is going away from us. Further away. And every year it goes further away. In a million years, it's going to be much smaller to the naked eye because it's going to be way out there. The moon, we're actually losing the moon, which is creating more instability in our weather patterns on planet Earth. The moon actually stabilizes our weather patterns. Pretty interesting stuff. Yeah, but that's where it comes from. The waters from the waters and the firmament from the firmament. That comes from the Enuma Elish and the 7 tablets of creation. They're talking about creating planets and galaxies, and they're not even talking about domes on top of a planet.
Got you. Yeah, like I always wonder, like if that is the case, like did all the countries get together and just hide this from everybody? Like it just kind of seems a little bit far out there to just accept that like that, Well,
let me add one more thing. Aerospace is a $1 trillion industry that has, and the majority of that has nothing to do with governments. We're talking about private space companies, private aerospace companies, private aerospace engineer tech companies. It's a huge industry because there's a lot of money in space tech. And these people haven't gone to school for 10, 15, 20 years, spent $100,000, $200,000 a year on education, become tech masters to work on this kind of tech to fool somebody that's living in Bodunk, Iowa, that the earth is flat. There's people out here really doing this stuff. It's real, you know what I'm saying? One of the top rocket scientists in the world is a Black woman right now. And so this stuff is actually real. It's not fake. There's nobody trying to cover up the world with this concept or this idea. And I told this guy the other day, and I hold this. Give me your biggest flat earth person. They're gonna go on we're gonna go on a field trip, me and that person, and I'm gonna pay for the field trip. And we're gonna take a field trip to some places. And when I bring them back, they're gonna realize they were wrong the entire time. And I'll pay for it. And I'll pay for it. So far, nobody's taking a challenge.
That's what's up. Okay. I mean, you know, I didn't think so. Like I said, we have certain questions that came in, but I feel like it'll be good for you to touch on that. So with that being said, then what would you say would be your understanding about inner Earth and, like, you know, there being stuff going on within the Earth, you know, the core of the Earth?
Another good question. Another great question. And by the way, by no means am I trying to insult anybody who believes the Earth is flat. I'm just saying it requires a lot more deeper, in-depth research and an understanding of science. Yeah. Now, as far as the inner Earth thing, the inner Earth, there's rumors of this inner Earth with the sun in the middle and the Earth is hollow. That one, I don't believe that the Earth is hollow. Now, the Earth is super massive. I think a lot of people don't realize how big this planet is. I've been on flights for 38 hours, okay? And that didn't take me all the way around. It just dropped me off in like the South Pacific or Cambodia. I've been to Cambodia, you know, the Maldives and the Indian Ocean. You know, that was like a 33-hour flight. This planet is huge, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So if I would have went all the way around, it would have been like a 60-hour flight, 70-hour flight. So that means that we're only occupying a very small space on top, right? We're like ticks on top of a dog. If you go into the like deep into the layers, there is a lot of mass that's not even being inhabited. Now, we've accessed different areas of the planet where they have these huge openings that open and go on for miles, these honeycomb type openings where we know that there's their own beaches, they have their own ecological systems and trees, and light works its way down there, and it's like its own ecology and everything. It's incredible. And there's quite a few places like that on planet Earth. They've gone even deeper than that. And they found like these huge honeycomb openings where realistically, you can build an entire civilization down in some of these openings underneath the planet, and they can hold millions of people. And so I look at it as, when I look at some of the Hopi stories from the Hopi tribe, the Lakota tribes, I look at some of the stories from the people from Turkey, and hear about these beings that took them into these underground areas to save them from catastrophes and attacks and things like that in the ancient past. They've etched these things into their cave stories and everything else. I believe that these people, I think this people can live down there and maybe even have been. You look at the story of the Nazis with Hitler when they went to New Swabia down to Antarctica. There's a huge opening there, about 35-meter wide opening that leads into like the inner area of Antarctica. And I believe that there's, you know, he probably bumped into some people down there. They call them the pre-Adamite people that helped him develop that technology that destroyed Admiral's Byrd fleet of Marine ships that came down there to see what the heck was going on. Sent them back home with his tail packing. So I think that that honeycomb openings that can have potentially advanced civilizations living in them, maybe even right now, maybe some of these UFOs are coming from the inside the Earth and not from space. I think that's possible. I don't think that the Earth is completely hollow and that there's a sun in the middle, but I do believe that there are giant openings that can house life.
I agree. Great answer. Okay. Let's kind of shift a little bit. Like I said, I've been kind of, getting a little deeper into the Emerald Tablets. And I wanted to get the question answered about Atlantis. Where exactly is Atlantis, or where was Atlantis? And what happened to it?
Good question. Now, the short answer is Atlantis, that people are thinking about, the ring city, was in the Atlantic Ocean. The Atlantic Ocean was dominated by a huge capital city, which was a ring city. And evidence of this is right there in the bottom of the Atlantic. I mean, right off the coast of Florida, there's a gigantic pyramid complex, well documented now. It's actually in the books. It's not even a mystery or a conspiracy, even the photos, the side scan radar photos are available. One of the pyramids down there is larger than the pyramid in Africa at Giza, right, in Cairo. And so that ring city existed right there in the center of the Atlantic Ocean. Now, that's a short answer, but Atlantis itself was more than just a ring city. That ring city that was made popular by Plato and so many other people have been talking about in movies and Hollywood was only one capital of dozens of capitals of Atlantis that existed all over Earth. So the true answer is Earth, the entire planet was Atlantis. The entire planet. You're standing on Atlantis, I'm standing on Atlantis, and I'm not even interested in you wherever you are. I think you're across the world from me. Atlantis is everywhere. And so the evidence of Atlantis can be found everywhere on the planet. The same megalithic buildings, the same building techniques, the same pyramid structures. They're found all over the planet on every continent.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. So you're just saying like the major city is the one that is kind of the one that they say disappeared. What do you mean by ring city when you say that, by the way?
Well, according to the ancient accounts, it was a city made of giant rings. In other words, they had these islands that were shaped like rings, and they were concentric rings going all the way out, and people lived on these rings in the middle of the ocean, like these land masses that were shaped from space looking down. They look like rings. They try to replicate this at Atlantis in Dubai. They kind of made artificial islands. If you look out of the window from the hotels there, you can see these land masses that shape like rings. They tried to reproduce, from the ancient story out there. And so the reason why they went against this city was because the king of this city started to actually take human wives. And that was a big no-no for the Atlantean race. And it created a lot of animosity and anger and frustration. And then they started elevating humans to different levels of power within that capital. And that word got out and they got really pissed off. The humans can't be let to know that they can be equals as us type of situation. And that created a war. And that's what happened to Atlantis. It was sunk by destruction. It was a war that happened.
Gotcha. I'm connecting the dots in my mind. We're not gonna go too deep into that. You guys got to go get the book. It's amazing. I would definitely recommend it to anybody who's seeking another form of knowledge. At least just like I tell people all the time, go out and learn everything and come to your own understanding. You don't have to believe everything that somebody says or tells you. With that being said, we know that there are a lot of ancient texts out there, and some of them are meant to be taken literal. Or at least some of the stuff in the text are meant to be taken literal. Some of them are meant to be taken more of a spiritual way, or more of a way that's not in the physical. So when it comes to Thoth, how do we know he was a physical being? Or was he?
That's another great question. So in the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, which is what I based my book on, Compendium of the Emerald Tablets, this book right here, he does things that make you understand that he was a physical being. The first thing is, in the opening scene of the Emerald Tablets, his father sends him to the land of Kem, that's Africa. That's in this area where Egypt is now there, but it used to be called Kem back in the day, before Egypt, before the dynastic era. And he told him to go there because the flood waters were receding. They were going down. Just after the Great Flood, more evidence of a Great Flood. This is 36,000-year-old text. And then what he says is, go out there with a crew and rebuild civilization in Kem. So Thoth gets into the ship of the master, and you think he's going to sail out on the ocean. The ship rises into the sky until the planet disappears. So then it reappears over the place appointed, which is the land of Kem. He sees the temple coming up out of the mud beneath him, and the ship descends from the sky down to the land. And here's what makes it, you understand that he's a physical being. When he opened the door to his ship, the people that had survived the flood generations later, they had gone back into Stone Age level. They came to attack him. They thought it was like an invasion against their city or whatever, their settlement. And he raised his staff and he sent out a ray of vibration, which froze them like stone in the mountain. So he sent out a stun weapon, a beam weapon that stunned them and froze them in their tracks. And then he released them from this beam weapon and said, I'm here in peace. I'm here to teach you and bring you back to a high level of civilization. So You know that this man now has directly interacted with people. He physically connected with them in physical manner using some kind of technology. And then he had a conversation with them. And when he said he also showed him his magic science, which translates into advanced technology, you know, little things like watches and electronic gadgets. And they bowed to his feet. And he said, no, stand up. I'm not a god. I'm here to help you. I'm a son of Atlantis, is what he said. And so that let you know, we're talking about a real physical being, flesh and blood, that came to help real physical people, not spiritual. It was physical. And he helped rebuild it. Once they rebuilt the land of Chem, he told his crew to go around the planet and duplicate what we did here, because everything was flooded. So they went around the world, and that's why you can find the same exact types of structures with different, you know, motif and different little art, you know, style, but primarily the same technique all over the planet.
Gotcha. Nice, man. Do you think that he will return? Because I know we have an understanding of how, you know, energy never dies. Yeah. But do you think that, you know, at least the energy of Thoth will return to this planet?
You know, he's gone and left and come back so many times, and every time he's come back, he's always had different names. He's been Tahuti, Dahuti, Thoth, Quetzalcoatl, Lord Pakal. You know, he's been Thor, he's been Odin, he's been Mercury.
That's right.
You know, the name's going on. And it's possible that he could be here right now, watching and observing. And see, he says in his tablet that he travels from planet to planet and watches civilizations rise and fall. And he has this thing called the Halls of Amenti. And in these Halls of Amenti, which they found the halls that he had mentioned underneath exactly where he mentioned on his tablet, in his tablets, underneath the Great Pyramid, they found those halls, wow. Hundreds of them, a mile deep underneath the Great Pyramid. And what's interesting is he said he had these rejuvenation chambers in these halls, and he would actually have a cloned body in these chambers, and he would transfer his consciousness into a body. And he said, I would walk amongst men, but unlike a man. He could be walking around here right now. You just never know.
That's what's up. That's what's up. And, you know, don't you have like some sort of visuals that you're going to have coming out for the Emerald Tablets as well?
Yeah, working on it now. Yeah. So we got the entire book audio done with a professional voice. And so now I'm working on editing like cutaway clips to give little slight reenactments and imagery and things like that to add it, bring it to life. And I'm going to break it into episodes, and that'll be exclusively on my TV network, Forbidden Knowledge TV.
Nice. I'm looking forward to it. Okay, and also I saw that you actually have a trip coming up to Egypt. Can you tell us a little more about that?
Yeah, man. Listen, this trip sold out so fast. People were going crazy because I was like, I'm only going to take, you know, 40 people. Yeah. And so the first bus filled up like within just a couple of weeks, and people were begging, please, is there any other way? And I was like, man. So I contacted my people over there, and they were like, we can add a second bus and we can link it with a microphone. So when you're talking on one bus, the people can hear you on the other one. Yeah. I said, maybe that's pretty cool. So we added a second bus. So October, the first week of October in 2022, this year, we're going to Egypt. We just got a second bus. So if you want to go, you got to hurry up and get your ticket. It's an exclusive VIP tour. We're going underneath the Great Pyramid into hidden chambers. We're going up into the Grand Gallery in the King's Chamber of the Great Pyramid. We're going to do meditations there. Nobody else will be allowed in, only our people. This is like exclusive VIP access, no tourists, nobody else. We'll be going into the Sphinx. We'll be going down right into the enclosure. Nobody can go down there. I mean, the average person or tourist, they're like 100 yards away on this ramp to look over into the Sphinx, but they can't go down there and actually touch it and walk around it, but we will. And then we're going to go to some hidden chambers that were found in the Temple of Dendera, some new crypts. We're going to access, there's like 12 new crypts there. We're going to go into those. We're going to go do a Nile cruise, and we'll have the entire ship to just our people. And we're going to have a great forbidden party on there too. So it's going to be nice. You know what I'm saying? Stopping in Luxor and Karnak and Thebes and, you know, all along the way. It's going to be an amazing trip. We're going to take our buses through the desert to Abu Simbel. We're going to have to take a couple of flights while we're there. All the flights are included with the fee inside of Egypt. So it's going to be all 5-star hotels, a mind-blowing, life-changing tour with me as your host and guide. And I'll be right there with you guys, taking you into some of the most incredible places and hidden and secret places you've ever seen in your life.
That's
And
what's
that's
up.
October. So they got to go to forbiddenknowledge.com with the number 4 and click on the Forbidden Tour.
Awesome. Awesome. Let me ask you a question. Why do you think that Egypt plays such an important role in ancient history? Like, why do when people look backwards, they usually tend to go through Egypt in history?
Egypt had, well, before it was Egypt, the land of Chem.
Yeah.
It was a real start after the Great Flood. It was a start of a lot of things like chemistry. That's where chemistry comes from the word chem. Alchemy comes from the land of Chem. And those two teachings went out and started spreading into other continents, out into Europe and everywhere else. And a lot of scientific understanding, a lot of philosophy came out of the land of Chem, and it really took a root around the entire planet. So we know that a lot of wisdom after the Great Flood was retaught originally in Chem and then spread around the world from there. So it's in everybody's psyche, it's in your DNA, it's in your genes, it's in your consciousness, even without you realizing it. You know, that fractal of that information that's inside your body all stems from that rebuilding of the land of Chem.
Gotcha. Yeah, because I understand. I know that in the Bible it says that Jesus fled to Egypt. They say that when he got there, when he started to study like the Egyptian mystical systems and stuff like that. Can you kind of touch on that a little bit more and kind of give a better understanding about why he actually fled to Egypt?
Yeah, sure. So when Jesus turned 12, as he was developing, so Jesus is a virgin birth. Now, he wasn't the first virgin birth. There were many before him, right? So it's something that they do. But what's interesting about Yeshua, which is his real name, he started regaining his memories from his past lives. And so he started realizing he wasn't just a regular kid. By the time he turned 12, he got the calling to go seek out the Egyptian mysteries. And so they took him, his mom took him to Egypt at the age of 12. This is where he disappears out of the modern day Bible. Now he's in Egypt, and in the Apocrypha text, in a book called, the scriptures called the Gospel of the Holy 12, you discover that he's in Egypt learning the Egyptian mysteries. From who? That were originally taught by this guy, Thoth the Atlantean. And so he's there learning this stuff. It's real because I've been to the house that he slept in. The house in Egypt is actually like a shrine now. I just visited it back in, when was it there? About 4 months ago, I was there again. It's incredible. And so they kept his house and they kept even the bed that he slept in and everything intact. It's still there. And so he, after learning the Egyptian mysteries, he then left there and he went to Tibet to learn Reiki healing with his hands and Qigong. And then from there, he came down to India and he went to learn the mystic arts, teaching reincarnation all the way back to Egypt. And then the Bible picks up again when he's in his 30s saying, I called my son out of Egypt. Then he heads back to Jerusalem. Pretty interesting story. All factual.
All facts too.
Yeah. Even the Dalai Lama made a statement about the fact that Jesus visited there and then, back then.
Nice. And I think I heard you speak on this I think I was on one of your lives a couple of days ago, and I heard you speaking about Akhenaten and King Tut, and actually how when he, fled, to create the temple, I think it's Armana, and left and kind of like they call him like the father of monotheism, right? Where he kind of said, you know what, we're only going to be worshiping Ra, and that story about that. I heard you break it down a little different than I heard it in my past. And it kind of like shined a little bit more light on maybe what his motive was in doing that. Can you kind of speak on that a little bit more and kind of give us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. Pharaoh Akhenaten was an incredible pharaoh because he was going way against the whole Egyptian belief system. He was going against all their ideology. He was going against everything that everybody had been believing for thousands of years, because he was getting his advice from Aten, who was also known as Amun-Ra. Some people call him the sun disk, because he would actually rule from the sky in this disk that would glow in the sun. It wasn't the sun itself, but it was this disk that he would fly around in. And when you look at some of the other texts, it would always say that Amun-Ra primarily would stay in his sun disk. Even if you look in some of the Sumerian tablets, they call him Marduk. He would stay in his disk. He didn't want to come to the ground. Him and Anu mostly ruled from space. But this guy was a brutal ruler. He was pretty evil. and he was jealous. This is where the phrase in the Bible, I am a jealous God, that came from the words of Amun-Ra, who Akhenaten was worshiping. Akhenaten was told by Amun-Ra to say that I am the one and only true God. There'll be no other God but me, and I'm a jealous God. And he wanted him to go around and start defacing all the other gods in all the other kingdoms, which was, all the Netiru, Thoth and Isis and Horus and all these people, Seth and everybody. So he started ordering the military to go around and start chipping away all the faces of all these gods, chipping away the faces on all the statues, knocking as many of them down as he possibly can. That's why they find some of these statues buried in the mud still to this day in Egypt, throwing them in the ocean and everything else. And he was the one who was responsible for all this defacing of the gods. It wasn't because white people were going around and didn't want people to know there were black people in Egypt. That's actually not the way it originally happened, the way these faces got chipped off. This happened thousands of years before white people even entered into Egypt. And so it's pretty interesting story. Now, what happened now, this guy was teaching monotheism, a one God religion, and he started getting a lot of followers. A lot of people started vibing with him. It got to the point where they said, we got to get rid of this guy. He's too dangerous. Like he's really damaging all of our history. So they had a coup. They kicked him out of Egypt. And was interesting was his mother and his father fought for him. This King Tutmos III and Queen Ty, but to no avail. All right, and they were both black. And then he had to get out of there, so he left. But now when he left, he took something important for the Egyptians. He went up into the king's chamber of the Great Pyramid, and he took the Ark of the Covenant that fits inside that stone box that's inside the king's chamber. That box, that Ark of the Covenant, is a power generating source that the Egyptians needed. Because why? The Nile had started to shift away from the Great Pyramid complex, and that water that used to run underneath the pyramid in the aquifer, which was responsible for physiostatic electricity and helping it generate wireless energy, it started to dry up. They needed that Ark of the Covenant in that spot to add the boost of power that would go up through the apex and send the wireless electricity to the other obelisks and the Jed pillars. So he stole that. He took it with him into the desert. That's why the Pharaoh went chasing after him, is to get back that thechnology, because they needed it, because they knew it was they're going to be put back into darkness. They needed it for electroplating and everything else they were doing. So he didn't cross the Red Sea. He crossed the Sea of Reeds. That's another bad translation in the Bible. He never crossed the Red Sea. He crossed the Sea of Reeds, which is a closer, much smaller sea. If you do a geological rewind on that area, you find out that there was a tectonic plate slip around that time. We can do that now through computer simulation, which would have caused a tsunami, which would have sucked the water out of the Sea of Reeds, and he would have easily been able to walk right through, and the water would have come crushing back on the Egyptian army. So he left, that's what he did. Now his son was left behind, King Tut, because he was crippled. Actually, he wasn't able to really move with them. He stayed. Now they tried to see if his son was going to be on their side, but they finally came to the realization if he gets older and gets wiser, he might just try to kill us for doing what we did to his dad. So they decided to kill him too, and that's what ended his life. So that's how King Tut got ended. But it's pretty interesting stuff, man. Pretty interesting story. But all that was based off of Amun-Ra ordering him to go around and make people think that he was the only one and true God, because Amun-Ra was jealous of his own relatives, who these other people were just relatives of his, that were blood and flesh and blood people. And he didn't want them getting worshiped or get brought gifts or having any domain, any power over his domain or his people. And that's what he did. He played this mind game and masqueraded as a god.
And his wife was Nefertiti, right?
Nefertiti, yeah. Nefertiti was his wife, and his kids had these big elongated heads. Akhenaten,
I was just about to ask that.
Yeah, huge. I mean, massive, way out there, not from skull binding. They were born that way. And even his daughters had these huge elongated skulls. And when you go look at King Tut's mummy, you see that the back of his head is one of these big, giant, huge balls in the back with more brain mass area. So these were not your typical Homo sapien. These were something else.
Were they still, what's that, maybe 4,000 years ago?
Yeah.
Like, is that accurate about the time they lived?
Yeah, that's the time frame. That's the that's the time frame.
Oh wow, that's
Well, 3,000-4,000 years BC.
BC.
Yeah.
Correct.
So that adds more time to it. Yeah.
So basically, those are like our ancient relatives.
Yeah, there are ancient relatives. Those are, the Black people that ruled over Egypt. They were probably close to the last Black Africans that ruled Egypt. After that, the colors started changing into different races. Egypt has been overthrown 7 times. This is what people got to understand. Egypt was not just this place where it was Black all the way from the beginning until the end, and all of a sudden Hollywood wants people to think it's white. That's not exactly true. Yes, Hollywood whitewashes everything. That's a fact. We already know that. There's nothing we can do but try to tell our story. However, in the deep, you have to understand all the history so you don't walk around ignorant, is that the first people to rule over the land of Kim were the Dogon tribe, the Dogons, which then were overthrown and pushed out into Mali, Africa, right? They were overthrown by some other Blacks. Then we have those people there who were ruling over the land of Kim, and then they got overthrown and they were pushed out and eradicated and everything else. And we had more people come in, eventually the Greeks and the Romans and, the Syrians. We had all these switches of people ruling over Egypt. And even in the dynastic era, late into the dynastic era, it primarily almost was completely white because of all the invasions.
Yeah.
We know the last one was Alexander the Great, and which they named the Library of Alexandria after him.
Yep.
And that he was European in Egypt. So it's been overthrown by a lot of different races. And by the time it got to the later dynastic era, it definitely was white pharaohs there. Now, they weren't real pharaohs. They proclaimed themselves to be pharaohs, but they were just people from Europe.
Okay, true. All right, so we over here at Flyshikis. We are part of the woke don't mean broke movement. Like, we love that, man. We push that all the time. Woke don't mean broke. So with that being said, what do you think is one of the smartest investments somebody can make in 2022?
In 2022, I think one of the smartest investments right now, if you know which ones to pick, would be NFTs. NFTs, I know people right now that are flipping NFTs and making 15, 20,000 a month with NFTs right now. It's still so new, you know what I'm saying, that you can get in and you can really do very well, very quickly. You can get in for small amounts of money. For example, my NFT just came out and it started off around 20, still on my website, 22.22 ethers, which means it's about, depending on the cost of Ethereum right now, it's probably they're around 580 to $600 for one NFT. But some people are already turning around and getting offers for $3,000 and $4,000 in a few weeks. One person has one listed I saw the other day for $32,000 on OpenSea, but I'm just one small project, right? Snoop Dogg put his song out, his album out as an NFT. He made 44 million in a week, or less than a week. Now, the people that bought that NFT can turn around and resell the NFT again, because now it's got so much hype, it's going to be worth more money. You actually own a licensed copy of a Snoop Dogg album, so that probably you can make $15,000 on, resell it. So NFTs is a way, if you really research and understand it the right way, it's a way that you can get in. Some NFTs you can get in for a couple $100 and turn around in a few months and sell them for a few thousand. Is there risk involved? There's always risk involved in any investment, but right now it's one. Now, another thing to look at is because all the military stocks rose significantly when this whole Ukraine thing happened, that means that they're going to have to correct themselves. Okay, they're not going to stay that high. They're going to start coming back down. So what I would do, and what I've done, is I put long puts on military stocks. Right, so I know which ones they have. And now I've said, okay, like Lockheed Martin and all these other ones. And so, okay, when they start coming back down, I've already got puts months in advance. So when they start dropping, I have a stock option against them. I start making money when they drop. So I would do puts on military stocks for months in advance. That way, when they come back down and correct themselves, you make money on the fall of those stocks. Things like that.
That's perfect, man. That's great advice. Like I said, I go by the alkaline investor, like I told you last time, because I'm an alkaline vegan, but I'm also an investor. I choose to put more of my time and energy into real estate right now. I created a virtual wholesaling company just because I feel like it's a little bit more of a secure investment than the NFT, the stocks, the crypto world. I'll be honest, I put my money into it a little bit. I've been scammed already. You know, I've been got a couple times, you know, so I'm not really like looking for more of a secure investment for me. But I do know with great risk can be great reward as well. So, you know, I tell people, you know, if you're going to jump in that lane, NFT, stocks, crypto, just know what you're doing first, you know, get an understanding.
But you got to do your research. You got to do your research, you know.
Yeah.
Real estate is great to be in. I mean, I'm looking to do some more properties right now myself. I really wish, especially in Florida, I'm living in Florida, and it's like, this is like a whole separate country. I mean, everybody's trying to come over here and live now, and all the values have gone up through the roof. So, there's, you know, the opportunities here are phenomenal, and properties are holding their value. So if somebody does have the ability to get some properties and have some credit to get some hard money and do some flips, great business.
For sure. Okay, that leads me right into my next question then. All right, so if you only had 10,000,
yeah,
what would be the first thing you invest your money in? The first thing, if you only had 10,000.
Wow. If I only had 10,000, wow, that's a small number to do. So I got to really, first of all, I got to make sure it's something that's pretty stable, because I don't want to roll the dice on 10K if it's all I got and lose it. What I'd probably do, if I get my credit straight down first and make sure my credit is decent, and then I go look for a small pre-construction home. So down here, there's a builder named Adams. You know, you put down 3% on the property, pre-construction, yeah, small home, like a 2-bedroom. They got these little small houses now, 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom, 1-bath house. You wait 8 months for it to be completed. By the time it's done, the equity's already gone up, and then you can flip it immediately. You can actually have the house sold before you close on it. That's one way. Another way is you can find, I have access to this database of foreclosures and some of the really small condos. Those are really easy, quick fix and flips. I could put $10,000 down on a condo, and I can actually just go in there myself with my people and just paint it up and make it look nice again, clean it up real nice. And then I can resell that condo. These are foreclosures. And I can resell the condo, and I can make back the down payment money plus some. You know, so a couple of ways to do it. In real estate, you can actually, it's a little bit more stable in that regard, you know. I don't know. I don't know if I only had 10K. I don't know if I just roll the dice on it completely all on the stock market.
Yeah, I don't know if I would do that either. I'm kind of speaking to the people who, you know, I've been there at one point where 10,000 was all I had, you know, tax money and stuff like that. So, or, you know, being that tax is coming around, I just wanted to kind of give some people some ideas of what they can do with that tax money, especially if, you know, you can get with a couple of people and pool that money together.
Yeah. Now there's something else they can do if they have a passionate dream of a business, and if they're really good at that thing, whatever that thing is. For $10,000, they can launch their own company. You know, if they perfected their talent, their skill set, or their knowledge of a particular service, you can launch your own business and have money from marketing. You know, for 10K, and start your own business, become your own boss.
Right. I think that when you kind of like find that balance of pursuing your passion, you know, getting paid for something that you actually like doing or you're passionate about doing, I think that's when you really win anyway. So then spending that money is just going to be like, you know, spending that money for your happiness just as much as for your business.
Exactly, for sure. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, we're not going to keep you too long here, but I wanted you to talk about Black Knight Satellite, and kind of tell us what that's going to entail, and you know, give us the understanding of what that movie is going to be about.
Yeah, it's been a big passion project for me for a while. I've been working on it now for 2 years. Finally got it done. Man, so the Black Knight Satellite is an object that's above Earth right now, orbiting the Earth, and it's been up there for a very, very long time. We know that Nikola Tesla detected this thing back in the early 1900s. We know that in the 1950s, ham radio operators were getting signals from this device. We know that the military tracked it. Yeah, they tracked this thing prior to Sputnik. Sputnik was the very first satellite we had in space, launched by Russia. They beat us into space with Sputnik. And all eyes were on space. And while all eyes were on space, all the heck is this thing doing up there? And it was in a very strange retrograde orbit. Then it moved to a polar orbit. they were like, wow, what is going on? So they then did some testing, and they did some low Earth orbit missions to see what was up there. Come to find out, there's an object up there that weighs an estimated 15 tons. This thing was course correcting. It even, 15 tons. It even followed Sputnik for a ways. So it actually has intelligent decision-making capabilities. It followed Sputnik. So Sputnik, went to the moon and orbited and came back. So this is crazy stuff, man. So then one of the signals had been translated into a star map. And then another person translated the signal to a star map. So we had two different sources that translated this as a star map. This signal is giving us a location. It was the location of the Epsilon Boötis constellation, which is a real constellation in space. But not just any Epsilon, not just any constellation. The thing that's incredible about it, this constellation is owned by, according to the Sumerian tablets, it's owned by Enlil, the former king of Earth. Pretty interesting. And it was known that he had an all-seeing eye. So I'm taking the approach to this that nobody's ever taken. I'm linking this Black Knight satellite to ancient texts, ancient people, and ancient technology. And what's interesting about the Epsilon Boötis, the signal is telling us where it's from, but where Epsilon was positioned in the sky 13,000 years ago. So this thing is potentially 13,000 years old. Yeah, pretty crazy stuff, man. So it's going to be an incredible documentary. The premiere is June 5th, and I'm going to be live and in person at the premiere. It's going to be at Imagine Theaters in Michigan. And so the address and all that's on my Eventbrite. You can go to eventbrite.com and sign up. You can come there live. We'll do red carpet, take photos. I'm going to speak for about an hour, answer questions, and we're going to watch the live premiere.
Nice, man. I appreciate you, Mr. Carson, man. Like, I feel like you always make yourself reachable. You always kind of like giving back to people, and at least if nothing else, just trying to, tell what you know. Like I tell people all the time, because, I've had a couple of people question me about the last interview, and they ask me questions about, well, do you really believe that this pyramids of Mars? Do you really believe this? And, like I'm kind of similar to you about belief. It's like, I'm just kind of going to go based upon the facts and, take what I can get and gather from all of the facts that I can gather and kind of come up with my own understanding. Yeah. And, more than not, it leans towards what you're saying, because a lot of stuff you can connect the dots and say, you know what, man, that could be something that has a little bit of truth to it, and you connect it to something else with a little bit of truth and kind of come up with your understanding. So I definitely want to give you kudos in that, man, because I definitely think that you're really just out here giving out free game. So I appreciate that.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you. Thank you, man.
Definitely.
Yep,
okay, well, this has been another episode of Flyshikis TV. We have the one and only Mr. Billy Carson here again. And make sure you guys don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and see you in the next time. This has been another classic episode at that. So see you guys next time. Peace.
Peace.